look on down the list there. Tony Kanaan, top rookie, in fact, now confirmed as Rookie of the Year. We're getting ready for the start here in Surfers Paradise. Dario Franchitti versus Alex Zanardi. Zanardi was very disappointed not to get the pole position this weekend. He was fastest on Friday. He had the provisional pole, but then they had a gearbox problem on Saturday's qualifying, and that meant he wasn't able to keep the attack on Franchitti.
There you see him pulling up alongside Franchitti. You mentioned he thinks that Franchitti is a pretty poor starter, so we're going to find out just how these two come out into the rush down to turn one, where of course it narrows, and the history of the race here at Australia has proven that generally 28 cars cannot get through that first turn.
Let's just quickly explain this track. It's really a series of straights joined together by chicanes and one or two 90-degree corners. That's basically it, isn't it?
It's a pretty simple layout, and a lot of curb jumping takes place during this event, and that could come into effect too for penalties, which we'll get into a little later on. But you'll see Bobby Rahal in his 263rd career start said it's who gets over the curbs best that runs well here in Australia.
Now there have been some very fast times set in qualifying, some very impressive times indeed this weekend. Cars beginning to really jostle position. This is down to the final corner now, where they will really begin to get ready for the start of the race. The green flag quite a long way down this straight, so they won't go for it just yet. They'll get themselves into position side by side. Beautiful day here in Surfers Paradise. It's a holiday town anyway, and everybody's turned up to enjoy themselves as they get ready to go racing. The green flag flies. Franchitti well ahead as the green comes out there, and Zanardi I don't think will have much chance down to the first chicane. Franchitti goes okay, I think, through the first part as the rest of the field comes through. Franchitti safely through there. Zanardi in second. Tracy's gone well. He's up into third.
Tracy started fourth, got by Christian Fittipaldi to pick up the third position. It looks like everyone was able to make it cleanly through the first couple of chicanes, and Franchitti was able to prove Zanardi wrong and get a great start. And I think Jim Swintal just let that one go because he was happy to get off clean, even though they weren't exactly side by side.
No, that's right. I think Zanardi might have hoped that they would have been slightly more side by side, but Franchitti definitely slightly ahead. They let him get away with that, so he is out in front. There he is, the Scotsman, as he locks those front tyres up, and he's got to watch that. It is hard, heavy braking coming into quite a few of these chicanes, but you can't afford to flat spot the tyres too much. The rest of the cars streaming through there, and look at this, the top two already beginning to pull away a bit.
A little bit. Dario Franchitti, of course, got lots of pressure on him. Alex Zanardi is doing everything he can to help Jimmy Vasser maintain second in the championship. There's $500,000 to second in the championship. So Zanardi is going to be driving very aggressively to start with to try and get ahead of Franchitti, and Franchitti knows that and is working his heart out right now to keep Zanardi behind him.
Yeah, I think that's a crucial point, Guy. Zanardi has said he's out to protect Jimmy Vasser's second place in the series. I suppose the best way he can do that at the moment, with Franchitti being Vasser's main opponent for second in the championship, is to get past him, to get in front and to try and beat him in a straight fight.
And I think in the straight fight we'll see it for the first 5 or 6 laps. Then maybe Zanardi will say, okay, I can't do it on the track. Maybe we can do it in pit lane and pick up the position and strategy, and also maybe save the car. If Franchitti's having to drive this hard, locking up the brakes all the time, he may pick up a horrible vibration if he flat spots the tyres. His car may go away, and Zanardi may just ease into the position. Don't forget, of course, Franchitti's campaign has been made a little bit easier with that bonus point for the pole position today, now giving him 144 points, just 3 behind Paul Tracy sideways.
Yeah, Paul Tracy. Interestingly, that was the corner that Tracy and Zanardi hit each other at last year. Remember, they were battling for the lead of the race. That was when Tracy was driving for Penske. Zanardi was in the Ganassi car, and they actually hit each other, took each other off, and that allowed the win to go to Scott Pruitt, although Pruitt had been up there throughout the weekend in the practice and qualifying sessions. But interestingly, Tracy there was just locking the rear brakes, getting the car a bit out of shape, got it together again, and behind him there you can see the two Newman Haas Swifts. There is Christian Fittipaldi, qualified an excellent third, and behind him, teammate Michael Andretti.
And don't forget, these guys are running on Goodyear tyres, and by far the fastest Goodyear shod entries in this event. Christian Fittipaldi qualifying third. In the morning warm-up this morning, the top 14 cars were all on Firestone tyres, so this is a good showing for Goodyear's. But as you may know, Ben, and as a lot of people may recall from Road America, Michael Andretti had terrible problems because they were going a little too soft on the Goodyears on the compound to try and make them competitive. and we were getting a lot of blown tyres.
That's right, and that's something they could do without between the concrete walls here on the Surfers Paradise street course. If you take a look at the tarmac, by the way, the asphalt has been newly laid. Most of it, it's about 3/4 of the way around the track, they've put a new surface down. You can see it's a darker colour around most of the track. You'll see a few lighter patches as we join on board here with Michael Andretti. There's been a little bit of problem with some breakup of that track, not really caused by the champ cars, but by some of the heavy saloon cars they've got racing here this weekend. The feeling is, though, that it should be okay for the race.
They had some of the big V8 Holdens running here this weekend and a bunch of other support races, and that has kind of chewed the track up a little bit. But you're right, they're not really concerned that it's going to completely go away, but it could just get a little bumpy and a few bits here and there in the race.
Now, we just heard that already a black flag has been called for one driver. It is for Arndt Meyer in the Lola, so all those German fans and groan as they discover their man is in trouble. There's fluid apparently coming from the back of his car.
Their man, of course, led 2 laps here last year in what was only his second race in the kart series.
That's right. Well, Meyer has shown some strong performances this year. The Lola chassis definitely improving. Up front at the moment, though, Franchitti is leading from Zanardi, Tracy, Fittipaldi. Michael Andretti holds on to 5th position. Still with Michael Andretti looking back into the helmet, and Michael Andretti's had some good performances here in the past. 1994 he won the race for Reynard. I gather we've had some technical problems, by the way. I gather the start wasn't shown clearly, and I'm sorry about that. We are sorting those problems out. It's been a little bit complicated getting everything sorted out this weekend, so do bear with us with our technical problems. But just coming back to Michael Andretti there, Guy, victory that he took here, 1994, his return to the Champ Car Series after really what was a disastrous time in Formula One, but what a return it was.
It was a great return for him and, of course, for Reynard, the debut victory for Reynard, which it has done in every series it's entered. And, of course, is now looking to do it in Formula One with the British-American Tobacco team next year. But for Michael Andretti, it must have been such a boost because he just got so terribly ragged in Formula One, had disappointing performances, and came back in, proved that he could win.
That's right, and well, he was brilliant on that occasion. We're looking at the 2 leaders at the moment, of course. Zanardi there, just bouncing over the curves.
And he's going to do the opposite, go from the Champ Car Series back to the Formula One in the Williams, and of course a great opportunity for him.
That's right, and I think everybody will be fascinated to see how Zanardi gets on. Of course, he has the advantage of having done some Formula One in the past, but I know, having talked to him about the difference in driving the cars, fascinating really. He says how much lighter the Formula One car is, how quickly it accelerates off the slow corners, but not so much on the straights. He says on the straights it actually takes quite a long time to change into 6th gear. It surprised him.
And of course the other thing is when he did drive in Formula One, it's a totally different machine than the Formula One machine now. So, but he's done some,
look at that. Do you see how sideways he was? He just about managed to gather it together. On board with Alex Zanardi then as he chases Dario Franchitti, but both of them are trying pretty hard at the moment. There's a 1.4-second gap between these two, but then the gap is another 4 seconds back to Paul Tracy in 3rd. So Tracy 3rd, Fittipaldi is in 4th place. Then Michael Andretti 5th, Gilles de Ferran 6th. And this is the car of Arndt Meyer into the pits. He was black flagged because of spray from the back of that car.
You can see the crew go to work as they take up the rear caulking and try and discover what the spray is and where it's coming from. Obviously, this is going to cost him time, and a tough break for Arndt Meyer. It's a long way to go to have a short race, and particularly for Dennis Vitolo, and don't even make the grid.
That's right. Last time in Houston, it was their home track for the Davis racing team. I'll tell you what was interesting, though. We were talking to the guys about that and saying, well, must be great to be a home track and not too far to go. They said, well, it still took us 8 hours to drive here. Just shows you how big the state of Texas
is. No small place.
Dario Franchitti leads this race at the moment, controlling yet again up front. It's a sight we're getting used to, but Arndt Meyer is not going to take any further part in this race. It looks as though first retirement of the day, sadly, is the young German racer out of the race very early on. So that leaves us 26 cars in the field at the moment. Vincenzo Sospiri in the Eagle chassis. see is the last car running, 2 Eagles in fact, running last, 25th and 26th places so far in the early stages.
Point out that, of course, R18, the only Lola in the field. Lola that was once so dominant in the Champ Car Series, now down to a lowly 1 car, although they've had some interest in some other teams, have done some testing. In fact, Lola has developed a fantastic world sports car, Can-Am entry, which is going to be making its debut pretty soon. But they're hoping again to get more customers. A lot of teams are changing, although Reynard's become the dominant team. Although Michael Andretti's led a lot of laps in the Swift, we're seeing some of the other teams now thinking that the Swift may be the way to go. And Steve Horn, who was elected to go with Swift in 1999, gave one good reason. Now that Reynard is concentrating on Formula 1, we don't think they can do Formula 1 and Champ Car Series as well. So we're going to go to Swift, and it's sticking particularly with the Champ Car Series. That could be an interesting change to 1999.
I think it will be, and of course Reynard's determined to show that they can do both and that they can concentrate on the Formula 1 project and the Champ Cars as well. We'll have to see what happens. On board with Gilles de Ferran at the moment, and Gilles de Ferran currently lying in 6th position. As you can see, his best finish here in Australia is a 5th place last year. In fact, he survived to finish in 5th last year, in spite of that incident involving Christian Fittipaldi, because it was Gilles who actually hit the back of Fittipaldi's car at the end of the first lap. Gilles survived it all. There was a race stoppage, and in fact 1 or 2 people were able to get out in their spare cars, and Gilles was able to still get a good result at the end of the day.
Well, Gilles de Ferran is famous for that. At the Cleveland Burke Lakefront track, we had a stoppage one year, and Gilles de Ferran jumped to his backup car and then won the race, his first car win. So he's obviously good at setting up the backup car over the weekend too, to be able to respond like that. So good for Gilles de Ferran.
Best results this year though, 2 third places only. No wins to speak of, no second places, just those 2 third places. It's been a disappointing season, there's no doubt, for them,
especially after finishing 2nd last year in the championship.
That's right. So Gilles hoping for better things next year, be joined by Japanese driver Naoki Hattori in what will be a 2-car team for Walker Racing in 1999. So Gilles de Ferran holds on to 6th place. Meanwhile, up front, well, there is Michael Andretti, in fact, just slightly ahead of Gilles de Ferran. Brian Herta in the background, and he's ahead of Jimmy Vasser. Now, Herta, of course, race winner now. At last, we've been able to say it. He won that race in Laguna Seca. Tremendous victory ahead of Zanardi. He's got Jimmy Vasser behind him. Adrian Fernandez running in 9th place, and Greg Moore in 10th. So we've got a group of cars, all race winners amongst them here, but all of them only just inside the top 10.
Bobby Gordon has been able to drive up to 16th position from 20th as well, and that's not from attrition, that's just getting by other guys, including Patrick Carpentier, Mark Blundell, who just would like to forget 1998 completely, and Elio Castro Neves, who's been struggling all weekend. Heavy contact a couple of times in both the original car and the backup car. And the other guy too, Scott Pruitt, who won this race last year, back in 11th right now, he's had a lot of contact. Now Zanardi closing right up on the Scotsman Dario Franchitti.
Yeah, this is getting close. The gap was down to just half a second as they crossed the line at the end of lap 7. They are now on the 8th lap, and Dario Franchitti sees his mirrors beginning to fill a little bit more with that red car of Alex Zanardi. Zanardi, who has not won on this street course. He's won on something like 8 of the 11 street courses used in the Champ Car Series in just 3 years of racing in the series, but he hasn't won here in Australia, and he would love to add this one to his tally.
And there you see Franchitti locking up the left front once again. We saw big time early, and if he keeps doing that, he's going to flat spot those tyres, get a big vibration. And Zanardi, as you mentioned, would love to win here in Australia. Of course, Australia is the one race where we have never had a repeat winner. 7 different winners here. Michael Andretti, John Andretti, who raced back in 1991. Of course, Nigel Mansell, Emerson Fittipaldi have won here, Scott Pruitt. And now, looks like we could get a first-time winner again with either Dario Franchitti here or Alex Zanardi. Those two are now out a good 10 seconds ahead of Christian Fittipaldi.
You mentioned Nigel Mansell there, Guy. He actually holds the race record, and in fact did hold the qualifying record here until this weekend. But as I mentioned, this new surface that's gone down around between 3/4 and 90% of the track with a new surface, and they've been much faster this weekend, up to 2 seconds a lap faster, which is astonishing really. But a lot of that is down to the new surface, and of course the continuing tyre war, which means that these softer compounds keep coming up. Firestone and Goodyear each trying to come up with a better compound.
Yeah, if you went back to Miami right now, to Homestead, and ran these cars again like you did at the beginning of the year, the difference in times would be remarkably amazing because the development's gone on. And of course, as you pointed out, this race coming at the end of the year as opposed to being at the beginning of the year.
Well, Dario Franchitti still leads after just 8 laps. Alex Zanardi pushing hard in second place. That's Adrian Fernandez at the moment. He holds on to 9th position. He's just behind Jimmy Vasser and Brian Herter. This is a good battle for position going on. Remember, still that second place in the championship up for grabs. Vasser controlling the points battle for second, but still pretty close behind is Adrian Fernandez, and even more importantly, Dario Franchitti is very close, and Franchitti still leading here. His lead over Alex Zanardi just 6/10 of a second last time round. They've just completed 10 laps, and in fact it's just gone up to 0.7 of a second. Really nothing in it between Franchitti and Zanardi at the moment. But it's interesting to see how far back everybody else has gone, because Paul Tracy is 11 seconds behind the top two, and then there's another 5 seconds back to Christian Fittipaldi. So the top two, Franchitti and Zanardi, are just playing with everybody here. They're dominating things at the moment.
You're absolutely right about that. This man, who's normally very quick, I think he may have a problem. Greg Moore, I saw him looking down in the cockpit, down towards his feet. Now, on Friday in practice, they lost the brake fluid oil, and it leaked into the car, onto the pedals. And it's a problem that's been seen by a couple of other cars over the season. I saw him looking down and struggling, although his times aren't dropping, but he definitely was looking around in the cockpit.
Yeah, well, let's hope that Greg Moore not in trouble here. Of course, made a fairly silly mistake, a basic error in the last race in Houston. He had started on pole, was beaten at the first corner by Franchitti, looked to be in a settled second place, but lost it in the wet conditions, ended up taking Christian Fittipaldi out with him, and there was a chance gone to score good points. We're looking at last year's winner, of course, Scott Pruitt, and he's not gone as well as we would have expected. He's running in 11th position at the moment. Always goes well at this track, but so far hasn't quite gone so well for him this weekend.
And obviously he would love to have a good result here for Pat Patrick, as he's going to move on to the Toyota team for 1999. PJ Jones will be driving this car, and Scott Pruitt obviously would like to repeat. He loves Australia. He celebrates his birthday down here normally when the race was run in March. Now, of course, a little later on in the year, so he doesn't get to do that, but he would like to get a good result here again, and becoming back as defending champion. He always like to do well at your track where you've won.
Sun shining brightly, temperatures around 29 degrees Celsius. Gorgeous day on the Gold Coast as normal, but of course a different time of year, as you mentioned there, Guy. We're now into springtime rather than autumn time.
Rather than fall, autumn, yes, exactly. And of course spring leads to summer, so the temperatures are a little bit warmer. About 84 degrees outside right now. The track temperature at about 130 degrees.
That's right.
It's a very grippy surface though, this one, with that new resurface, and of course the tyre development and the heat.
Yeah, all part of
board now with, of course, the veteran 263rd kart start for Bobby Rahal. Hasn't won a race since 1992, came awfully close at Mid-Ohio this year, his hometown track. Would love to go out in his last 2 races with a win before hanging his hat up as a driver, and then of course becoming an owner, and Max Papis will drive this car in 1999, and that would be great to see Max in a very competitive car.
He's being hounded at the moment by Finn and JJ Leto in the Hogan car there. JJ qualifying reasonably well on this occasion in 15th position, not as far up as he would like, of course, but still not bad.
The good news for him today, though, is he hasn't put it in the wall in the first lap and haven't had a mechanical problem in the first 5 laps.
That's right.
So far, this is a good day for JJ Leto.
He's had all sorts of troubles this year, hasn't he? And a couple of occasions when he's been reasonably well up, things have gone wrong for him. Laguna Seca, he qualified 11th, got hit by Christian Fittipaldi, in turn hit Michael Andretti, and that really didn't quite end his day, but it certainly ended any chance of a good result.
And of course, in the meantime, Carl Hogan, his team owner, is watching his former driver, Dario Franchitti, go on and score 76 points in the last 4 races. Going to be a bit tough for Hogan. And Hogan, of course, is still trying to drum up some sponsorship for that team, and it's pretty tough to drum up sponsorship when you've got no results to show.
Now, here's another battle that's going on, but this, let me tell you, is a long way down. 20th position, would you believe, for Al Unser Jr., the former champion in the Penske. They're still not coming together for this team. And indeed, both cars were a long way down on the grid. Al Unser Jr. qualified 19th. Andre Ribeiro qualified down in 20th. 22nd, and we've got a spinner. It's Michel Jourdain Jr., and the young Mexican has lost it, and you can see the line of rubber there, and the yellow, local yellow at the moment. Now, is this going to bring out a full course? I would think it would have to. Look at that. He's very much on line there, and that's going to cause a few problems. We haven't had any yellow flags yet. Fuel is an issue here this weekend, and unless they get some yellow flags, there could be some problems. The two leaders go past. They get past safely. Let's hope that everybody else manages to do it carefully. And it does sound as though we've got a full course yellow. The pits are open, and I would imagine that we will see some stops here.
I'm going to say the fuel is an issue. The window is lap 22, 23. Now here come the leaders, and they both dive in. Obviously, once the leader goes in too, it's up to Zanardi to go in as well. And now this is where Zanardi could take over the lead. Watch the great pit work by the Ganassi team. Of course, the Cool team very good as well, but Ganassi seems particularly good, and Zanardi seems particularly good getting out of the pits.
That's right, this is a real battle going on between the two pit crews, but Team Green and Dario Franchitti have made some great pit stops this year. They had a few problems earlier in the year as the new team got together. Zanardi's away, and he's got away in front. He's ahead of Franchitti, and Zanardi takes the lead, and the Ganassi team's done it again.
They have done it again. It looked like there was no urgency in the Team Green pit area. They didn't know they were rushing or anything because of the fact they're pitting under yellow, but they still had to get out and beat Zanardi out. Now Paul Tracy goes out, Greg Moore comes in very hot,
and Michael Andretti comes out. Well, there you are. That's what it's all about. That's part of the championship success that Alex Zanardi has had. There's Scott Pruitt coming out, Greg Moore down there in the pit lane, ready to come out. He accelerates away, hopefully cleanly. Vassar comes out of the pits as well. But so much of the success of both Jimmy Vassar and Alex Zanardi over the last 3 years has been that tremendous work in the pit lane. There's Michel Jourdain just out of his car, by the way, and they've done it again. But of course, Zanardi had to be right behind Franchitti to get that advantage. He worked hard in the first section, stayed with Franchitti so that when the first stop came, he could take advantage of the superior pit work. That's what he's done, and Zanardi is now out in front after 12 laps. Of the Kart Grand Prix of Australia from sunny Surfers Paradise. The field continues round. 12 laps have been completed, and it's Alex Zanardi who is now in front thanks to a great pit stop, and the crew going to work as ever and doing such a good job. Chief mechanic Rob Hill and the crew have once again done the business for Alex Zanardi. He was right behind Franchitti when they came in. Now the question is, Guy, I think, is can Alex now get away from Dario Franchitti? He did seem to be able to go very quickly before that first stop. What do you reckon? Is he going to pull away from Dario?
I think he is, because from what we've seen of Alex Zanardi previously, give him the point, give him the lead in an open track, and he just tends to disappear. And then the other guys also feel that they don't want to push it too hard to chase him because he is so tough to keep up with.
Well, Zanardi has been such a dominant driver really this year. The second consecutive kart championship for him, and a record for points in a single season, now at 250, but of course still these two races, this one and the last one at Fontana to go, and 13 podium finishes. What a tremendously consistent performance that's been from Zanardi. That's 6 wins this year.
And the one amazing thing about Zanardi is that he has not had a pole all season. Very unusual.
No, that's right. Look at that. He's won at 8 of the 11 kart road circuits, as we mentioned earlier on. Hasn't won in Vancouver, nor in Houston. Well, there's only been one race there, nor here in Australia. Well, maybe he can amend that statistic here today. He does like setting records and pushing the boundaries. Had pole position here last year, then had the crash with Paul Tracy when they were battling for the lead. This year, as we know, they had a gearbox problem in Saturday qualifying. What happened was they changed down from 5th to 4th, and it actually, because of the gearbox problem, it changed down to 2nd gear, and it revved the engine to something like 19,500 revs, and it didn't like it very much.
Not even the Hondas can go that high, because these guys race at about 15,000, and 19 is just a little too much.
Absolutely. Well, as we're under this yellow, it's an opportunity for us to perhaps just look back over other events here at Surfers Paradise. And of course, the event that happened here last year that caused such consternation, a great deal of worry as well, was the accident for Christian Fittipaldi. It happened going on to the second lap when Gilles de Ferran just clipped the back of Christian Fittipaldi's car, sent it rocketing into the Armco, one side and then the other, and you could see the damaged car ricocheting across from one side to the other.
And that's where he also did the damage, because he bounced off that next barricade, went across again and hit another barricade. Now you can see the agony on Christian's face. as of course Roberto Moreno took over for him for the next couple of races in that team. But Christian comes back to Australia this year with a third place qualifying. He said he would have had the pole except for on that turn. He's still a little nervous about that incident, and he said he didn't take it flat in qualifying.
Yeah, well, you still have to admire the courage of the man. He had pins in his leg for most of last year, and in fact he had to do a lot of physiotherapy to try and get fit to get back in the car. I remember when he came back at Portland, it was a very impressive drive that he put in last year, and he's been up there on a number of occasions this year, but he seems to me to be one of those unlucky drivers, and whether he'll ever get away from that, I don't know. He was a Formula 3000 champion in Europe, but ever since he's been in champ cars, he just seems to have that unlucky mantle.
And he's had a couple of times where he should have maybe have won, and of course is still probably one of the best drivers out there, not yet to win in the Champ Car Series.
Well, the man who has won this year, Dario Franchitti, and he really has shown himself to be on a roll. Look at this, the points he scored in the first 13 races, 67 points. In the last 4 races, that's right, just 4 races, a third of that, 77 points. It's an amazing performance, amazingly consistent record that he's put in recent races.
He doubled his score from the first 13 races, and that's what's vaulted him up to third in the point standing, and suddenly made that interesting. I mean, the series has been clinched by Zanardi. Not that it hasn't been interesting, but now it's turned out to be a great battle for second, including Fernandez, who's in that chase. He's just 14 points behind Jimmy Vasser. Michael Andretti is in there mathematically, but he'd need to win here, and Ribeiro getting a little
yeah, you see that? I don't know if he actually clipped the wall, but he got it so sideways there. Andre Ribeiro did well to get it back again, but that looked like a fairly scary moment for the Penske driver. Meanwhile, everyone else trying to get tyre temperature up a little bit. New surface, that might have a bearing on this as they build up to speed once again, and Zanardi, now then, he's determined to show Franchitti a thing or two here on the restart, and I want to see whether Franchitti's going to try and challenge
Tracy. Don't forget, right behind his teammate Franchitti. Of course, those guys, we need a little bit of a buffer zone between them, and of course the teammates of Christian Fittipaldi and Michael Andretti behind them, then Greg Moore, Brian Herter, Adrian Fernandez, Jimmy Vasser, Patrick Carpentier, Scott Pruitt, Andre Ribeiro, and Bobby Rahal as we run down the field for you. JJ Leto is in 15th, Max Papis, the fastest Toyota, in 16th, Tony Kanaan in 17th, Robbie Gordon in 18th, Mark Blundell, unfortunately, back in 19th, Elio Castro Neves, the rookie, in 20th, and in 21st it's Richie Hearn, 22nd is Alonso Jr., but from 18th position down, they're 1 lap behind.
Zanardi's already on it as they come out through the last couple of corners, really tries to accelerate early to beat Zanardi away, and you can see Zanardi's car really scrabbling for grip as they come out of that turn. In fact, that was the corner that Nigel Mansell lost it in the wet here, the second year that he was racing on this Australian track. After getting a pole position, Zanardi bounces it over the curb, and the others get through there safely by the looks of it. The 2 Newman Haas cars, Fittipaldi and Andretti, chasing the 2 Team Green cars, but it's Alex Zanardi who leads away on this restart.
It looked like Franchitti was going to be able to stay with him. He stayed very close, but now suddenly, after that quick right-left-hander, Zanardi seems to be able to pull away. As they hit these curves, you've got to be really careful there. Vasser having looked down the inside of Fernandez, because the problem with running over the curve, which you need to do to make the corner shorter, if you get it slightly wrong, they're going to bounce the car up into the wall on the outside of the track, which of course, once you've got the wheels airborne, you have no control over the car.
That's right, and that's and it's history, isn't it? We've seen 1 or 2 big accidents here at Surfers Paradise in the past, and in fact there was the race that Paul Tracy went on to win back in 1995, when Michael Andretti led nearly all the race and then lost second gear, and he was trying to win the race. Franchitti's a bit sideways there. Michael Andretti was trying to win the race without second gear. He nearly did it as well, but then through that chicane, he just got it all wrong, and unfortunately smashed the car, and Paul Tracy came through to win it.
That was a fantastic race we saw there, as you mentioned, back in 1995. Right now, no one's stuck in second. It looked well, Franchitti stuck in second position, as Zanardi seems to have checked out just a little bit. Interesting feature here, Ben, that makes the Champ Car Kart Series so interesting. We've got the manufacturer's title, and of course the rookie title. We also have the nation's title. Right now we have an Italian leading over a Scotsman, over a Canadian, then the Brazilian Christian Fittipaldi, and then an American Michael Andretti. So 5 nations represented in the top 5, and the Nations Cup has not yet been clinched.
That's right, the Nations Cup, a series of points given to the top finisher from each respective country, and Zanardi amazingly has Italian honours up there, but he's on his own, isn't he? Because he's the only one who's been scoring points for Italy effectively.
I think Max Pappas has scored 1 point.
That's right.
Oh, no, because of the great finish in Houston, he did score a few points, but yes, pretty much a one-man campaign with Alex Zanardi representing Italy.
That's right. Well, he's up front, he's pulling away. The gap to Franchitti, 2.5 seconds. So it's clear that Zanardi felt he could go faster when he was behind Franchitti. A little bit of brake locking going on, and this time everyone else is staying with Franchitti, much more so. The early stages of the race, it was Dario and Alex Zanardi pulling away. Now Franchitti finds himself back in second and really under pressure still from teammate Paul Tracy, followed by Fittipaldi, Andretti, then Patrick Carpentier in 6th place. Now Carpentier must have stayed out there, I think, in that first run to have moved up to 6th place. So Patrick's decided on a different pit stop strategy. Not a bad idea because he was a long way down the order earlier on.
And another good reason for that not being a bad idea is because of the history of Australia. We see a lot of yellows here normally. So Patrick is probably thinking this isn't going to be the only yellow before lap 23. We're probably going to get another one somewhere. And he is obviously hoping at this point that they are going to get one before the pit window so he can pit under yellow.
That's right. So Zanardi's just gone across the line, 2.2 seconds ahead of Franchitti. Then Tracy Fittipaldi, Michael Andretti, and then Patrick Carpentier, Gilles de Ferran and Brian Herta. Looking down over start-finish, Andre Ribeiro there. He's got a little gaggle of cars behind him, including Max Papis. Papis, who qualified in 13th position, best ever Toyota qualifying on a road course or street course. They had a 13th place qualifying earlier this year at Nazareth, courtesy of Robbie Gordon. But this weekend they've been on the pace, and they've also been setting some of the top speed trap figures, which is very impressive from an engine which up to now really has been a poor 4th place compared to the others.
It has very much so, and it finally seems to have kicked in the last couple of races. And as you mentioned, the speed trap figures, Robbie Gordon was quicker in a couple of speed trap areas over the weekend in the practice and in the qualifying. So maybe Toyota can finally get in there and be competitive for 1999.
Alex Zanardi is race leader after 18 laps have been completed. Franchitti lies second ahead of Paul Tracy, Christian Fittipaldi, Michael Andretti and Gilles de Ferran, but there's still a long way to go here in Surfers Paradise. Eurosport's coverage, the early hours here. Alex Zanardi, race leader by 1.8 seconds, so although he pulled away a little bit at the restart, now the gap has stabilised. He may be happy not to push too hard. They have both pulled away a bit again from Paul Tracy.
Franchitti has closed up a little bit on Zanardi, and they've both pulled away from Paul Tracy in 3rd and Christian Fittipaldi in 4th.
Now, since you were away, there was a problem. We've seen Alonso Jr., but we've also just seen Bobby Rahal. That's Rahal out. Oh, what a shame. We've got a full course yellow. This is going to be good news for Patrick Carpentier, perhaps, who stayed out there on the first round of stops on lap 12. So Carpentier will come in on this lap number 20. But what sad sight it is to see Bobby Rahal out of this one. No idea exactly what's happened, whether there was contact with another car or whether he's done that on his own. But the end result is damage to the left-hand side of the car. He says,
no, I don't think Bobby did that on his own, because Bobby Rahal very rarely does it on his own. And you see him put his hands up there in a questioning way. So maybe he got a little bit of a help, a little bit of a tap. We'll try and research that for you.
Well, bad news. Now, here's
you
Alonso
got
Jr.
a traffic jam going on up there. Tony Kanaan and somebody else, they get to race it, and so it really created a big buildup behind, and I was able to get up next to Richie going into the hairpin, and then as we went around, we just barely touched my left front, and it bent it. And so
track conditions right now?
Track conditions are pretty slippery out there everywhere, but you know, they're all right. It's great racing weather. It's all good out there. There's nothing really going on that, you know, that I could really say.
Sorry you're out early.
Thanks.
Gary?
Well,
So Jan Beekers with Alonso Jr. And we're going to take a look at a replay of that in just a moment. We're just watching the two leaders slowing down under yellow flags here. The full course yellow out as a result of Bobby Rahal. Now here's the replay. You see Alonso Jr. was on the outside there, trying to go around the outside of Richie Hearn. There was only a little bump, and I thought, well, they probably got away with that, but no way. Look at that, the left front suspension badly damaged.
That's quite unusual for it to be that damaged on such a little contact like that. We've seen Alonso Jr. go completely sideways and come back down and win a race from that. As we see now, Patrick Carpentier gambled on there being another yellow flag before lap 22, or at lap 21 it's come out, and now he's in the pits and making his stop.
Now the critical thing here is, although this will drop him down, he may still be able to get through this race on one more stop, whereas everyone else will have to make 2 more stops unless there's a huge number of yellows. So Patrick Carpentier could be in pretty good shape come the end of this race. That yellow fell really well for him, and in fact Castro Neves in the same situation. So they may be able to make it through. It will be marginal, but they might be able to make it on 1 more stop. The others will have to make 2 more stops. So Alex Zanardi is still our race leader. The pace car out there, of course, at the moment as the car of Bobby Rahal is cleaned away.
A tough way for Rahal to end his 263rd career start.
Right.
And obviously, you want to go out with a bang, but of course...
not that much of a bang.
Yeah, not that much. And of course, Japan, we saw the huge incident for Bobby there. Huge scare for him towards the end of his career. It would be nice to see him, well, with 1 race left at Fontana, coming up in November. Love to see him get a great race.
Well, of course, there we on board with Michael Andretti. Alex Zanardi leading this race at the moment. And Zanardi, as we mentioned earlier, really has been the dominant force of this championship, certainly this year, last year as well. And now making that move over to Formula One and to see how he gets on with the Williams Grand Prix team, of course.
Won't be long till he's back here in Australia in March in the 1999 Formula One season.
Yep, they'll be racing in Melbourne, of course, for the early races of the Formula One World Championship. And Zanardi will be getting in winter testing with Williams to try and get himself right on the pace. Of course, he's done a little bit of testing already, but the question is whether he'll get really a good chance over the winter to match himself against some of the other Formula One drivers. But you can bet Alex Zanardi is one of the most competitive people out there. He really, it burns inside him, this competitiveness, and it'll be fascinating to see how he gets on. Laps have been completed here at Surfers Paradise in this very last street or road course race of the year. Just 1 more race to go. That's on the high-speed oval at Fontana. Greg Moore into the pits. This is interesting. Now this is again strategy, I would think, from the Forsyth team, although there's a bit of, look at this, work going on the front of the car.
Straight to the springs they're going, I think, as they work. Yeah, there you see them go to work on the springs on the front. And the shots for Greg Moore. He's doing this while he's got a chance to do it under yellow. Now I mentioned earlier he was looking down in the cockpit. Remember earlier I kept saying he had some problems. He keeps looking down in the cockpit. I saw them reaching down there. I think they're also looking down to see if there's something interfering with the pedal maybe. Maybe they're...
I really enjoy when people makes me the kind of compliment that is, Alex, you've remained the same kind of guy you used to be when you race go-karts, but I don't know, maybe we should really ask somebody else.
When I first met him in 1995 in New Hampshire at the race, I knew then that he is much more than just one of these young race drivers today that are they're like a robot, or they read the book on how to be a race driver, and that's not Alex at all.
He's a good friend. He's got a big heart, you know. He's a good friend, and is very warm inside, and you know, we've developed a good friendship, and I think which is unique in a racing team. Usually there's a lot of competition between the 2 drivers, but I'm sure we race hard against each other, but there's no mean-spirited competition. I feel that he's very happy when I do well, and I'm happy for him when he does well, so it's a good relationship.
Have they been too nice to me? Well, if yes, don't believe at all they said.
Zanardi, and this is the look from Alex Zanardi's car as he follows the pace car around here. 22 laps, and a problem with Greg Moore's brake pedal has just been revealed. He's just been into the pits, and they've been fiddling around and doing some slightly important mechanical work there. If his brake pedal was in trouble, you don't really want that when you're doing 180 miles an hour heading into one of these chicanes, do you?
Where you need to be doing 20 at the end of it. So.
Yeah.
And Al Jr. rejoined after the work to the left front suspension. And Greg Moore, I had seen him looking in the cockpit, and obviously that's what the problem was. He's going to be back out there. Didn't lose much time because he was able to make the repair under the yellow. And now they've made the repair to the tyre wall, the kart safety crew out there. Of course, that problem caused by Bobby Rahal going off.
Interesting to see the two Team Green cars together there after their little incident in Houston, but apparently it's all settled now between them. The Surfers Paradise Champ Car Race. We're still under yellow flag at the moment, but hopefully the incident's cleared away. It was Bobby Rahal that caused this latest yellow flag, but now everybody's back in the lineup. There is Greg Moore. He's been into the pits. They had a problem with the brake pedal, so he's at the back of the queue. And there is the man, Alonso Jr., who had the damage to his front suspension. He is also back out there. So interesting to see that. He's 3 laps down on race leader Alex Zanardi, but they've decided to get that Penske back out. Alonso Jr. did an interview with us in the pit lane, and now he's decided to go and do some more driving. Well, Alex Zanardi up front at the moment, but last year he was also in with a chance of winning this race. Last year it was a battle between Alex Zanardi and Paul Tracy. Both of them had been running well in qualifying. Both of them were running extremely well in the race as well. But unfortunately, things didn't go quite according to plan for either Alex Zanardi or Paul Tracy. Let's take a look at what happened here just over a year ago, because of course remember it was in the early part of the season. Well, Zanardi managed to get past Paul Tracy, then they got into this wheel banging match, and then just too much wheel banging, too much contact, they both went off. Zanardi spun off, but the car was undamaged. He managed to rejoin, and in fact he recovered to finish in an amazing 4th position, but of course any chance of the win had gone out the window.
Yeah, an amazing recovery to come back to finish 4th. We saw a lot of incidents last year. Parker Johnson had a lot of troubles here last year. Zanardi with Tracy having a bang together. Of course, Pruitt coming up with the win. Zanardi amazingly came back to finish 4th in that one.
Yeah, well,
now Zanardi, of course, looking for his teammate, trying to help him, and as you look back, you will see his teammate, Jimmy Vasser, right behind Adrian Fernandez, because these other two guys, of course, Paul Tracy, Dario Franchitti running together, Christian Fittipaldi, and Michael Andretti running together as they get ready for the restart on lap 23.
Did you see the power go down there? As over 800 horsepower through those rear wheels, which now, of course, are on cooler rubber, and both Zanardi and Franchitti sliding around. This is a critical point again, through the first chicane, bouncing over the curb. Zanardi really attacking that curb through the first chicane, survives that through the second chicane. Remember, that's where Michael Andretti hit the tyres in his 1994 win here, and yet he still managed to survive and go on to take the checkered flag ahead of everyone else. Again, another pretty clean restart by the looks of things through those first couple of chicanes. It's Zanardi from Franchitti and Paul Tracy.
Gilles de Fran has moved up well over the race up to 5th position. But a great battle between Zanardi and Franchitti. Zanardi, I think, is going to disappear again for a little bit, but then we'll watch Franchitti come back again as they did. Now, don't forget, these guys stopped on lap 12 for the first yellow, so they got about another 10 or so laps before they're going to have to start worrying about stopping for fuel again. Christian Fittipaldi there, you see him bouncing up and down, pretty rough surface here, and a huge crowd as you look to the left and to the right of the track. Standing room only, all the seats in the grandstands are being sold out. Approximately 97,000 people paid for tickets here today, let alone the ones that are in all the condominiums and the downtown buildings looking out the window.
You get a tremendous view from some of those high-rises that are around the track. Fantastic place to watch.
The noise echoing of that 14 to 15,000 RPM, 800, 900 horsepower engines all around town. It kind of disturbs the koala bears a little bit, I believe.
That's right. But it is a great track. It's always been a popular circuit with the drivers as well. It's got some speed to it, which of course is great for street tracks. Not often they don't have long enough straights. This does. This has good long straights, really high speed. They're demanding braking into these chicanes, and you have to be brave and you have to be accurate to really get a good lap around this circuit.
The other thing about this circuit, though, is it's fairly narrow. And now we're going to see a typical kart happenstance come up here in a moment, in a few more laps. We're going to get a lot of rubber build-up thrown off to the side of the track, the racing line. And once that happens, it then makes it incredibly hard for these guys to go off the racing line to try and put a pass on the guy ahead of them, because you lose all grip. And we heard Alan Jr. saying it turns out the track is a little bit slippier than they thought it was going to be. It's pretty slick out there. So adding those marbles is going to make it very slick out there. We could start seeing some incidents from that.
Looking back now at Fernandez, and Fernandez ahead of Vassar now. 8th position for Adrian Fernandez, 9th place for Jimmy Vassar. Vassar just trying to score points consistently for that 2nd place in the championship. Didn't really gain any places on that first round of pit stops, and if anything, lost out a fraction to Adrian Fernandez. Fernandez has had a great season. He's been one of the consistent drivers of the year, and it's good to see the Mexican really putting together a strong season all the way through. It's not as if he's just getting a couple of flash results. He's been up there all the time. 2 wins to his name, 1 pole position this year as well. The wins coming, of course, in Japan and at Mid-Ohio, and he's currently in 4th place in the championship on 134 points.
There are, however, reports from around the track that there is some fluid coming out the back of his car, and if that continues, and I'm sure Jimmy Vassar too is on his radio, if there are such fluids, he will be reporting it into Chip Ganassi and asking them to either black flag him or bring him in so they don't have a problem. We're going to look for those, but I haven't seen any signs of it yet. But obviously the corner workers that spot for these things, they radioed in to race control. Wally Dollenbach will make a decision, and they may bring him in.
Brian Herter's just to the head of this little group. Herter lies in 7th place then. Fernandez in 8th, Vassar 9th, Pruitt 10th. Leto, Vassar pretty close to the back of Fernandez's car there. JJ Leto running in 11th ahead of Max Papis in 12th. And then Robbie Gordon 13th, Tony Kanaan in 15th. All those cars pretty close. In fact, you could just see JJ Leto's car in the background at the top of the picture as we had that shot. And now we're looking at the overhead view. There's the beach on the right-hand side. We're right next to the Pacific Ocean here. Beautiful part of the world. It really is a very popular holiday town. Tourists from around the world, but also from Australia, coming to Surfers Paradise. It has a year-round good climate. It never gets real extremes being right on the coast, but it is a year-round a beautiful climate, beautiful part of the world to live. Brisbane is perhaps the nearest large city. Of course, if you head further down south on this eastern side of Australia, you'll end up in Sydney. But I know quite a few of the drivers came out here early to really enjoy themselves and have some fun. Dario Franchitti, Max Papis, Greg Moore, for example, they all came out the day after Houston to come and enjoy themselves on the Gold Coast.
They came and, of course, have enjoyed themselves on the beaches, surfing and jet skiing in the water, and having a great time out here and enjoying, obviously, a week or just over 10 days in Australia. Beautiful weather, and these guys certainly have a good time when they come down here.
27 laps completed now out of the 65 this race is due to run. It gets close on the 2-hour limit, this race. So 65 laps is the scheduled distance. Remember, though, from the green flag flying, any champ car race has a maximum running time of 2 hours. So if you get to that point before the laps are up, then the clock determines the end of the race. That's what happened here last year, in fact, although they didn't quite get it right. And Scott Pruitt ended up seeing the white flag twice. They mistimed the putting out of the white flag. He thought he was coming round to win the race and get the checkered. Saw another white flag, which gave him a bit of a shock.
Well, it must be awful, because when you see the white flag, of course, and you're out in front, and that's when you start hearing all those noises and everything else. You're like, okay, just get me around one more time. And you get around that one more time, and you come around the corner, you're about ready to salute and get the win. And you see it's not a checkered, it's the white flag again. I was like, oh no, not good at all again.
That's right. That's exactly what happened to Scott Pruitt last year. And but he survived. He was all right for the next lap as well. On board at the moment with Michael Andretti. He's another winner here, one-time winner of this race, as of all the winners. Nobody's done a repeat victory here. 1994, we mentioned that win in the Reynard earlier on in the program, and he looks to be in good shape here, although not quite able to match the pace of Zanardi and Franchitti, who on each of the green flags have really been able to pull away from everyone else. But Andretti running consistently just behind his teammate, both Newman Haas cars then in the top 5.
Not forgetting, of course, that Michael Andretti is in the Swift chassis with the Goodyear tyre, and of course Zanardi, Franchitti and Tracy all on the Firestone tyre. And Goodyear, well, they've struggled, let's put it this way. They haven't had a pole all season, and their win, of course, with Michael Andretti at Homestead earlier this year, but really not performing as well as they would like against the Firestone, although they think that next year they're going to be a lot better, because now that Goodyear is pulling out of Formula 1, they're thinking they'll spend more time testing and developing their Goodyear tyre for the kart series.
On board with Richie Hearn now in another Swift chassis, right behind Mark Blundell. That little battle going on at the moment for 15th place. And in fact, Blundell, yes, that's 15th place for Blundell, 16th place for Richie Hearn. Let's just watch the on-board for a moment here. Oh, we seem to have lost it for a moment, sadly. We were just enjoying the view from on board the Young Americans car there. He, of course, the only Swift on the Firestone tyre. He's up against another Firestone tyred machine, that of Mark Blundell right ahead. See how they don't use a complete steering wheel on this Swift of Richie Hearn there. The top part is cut off. Some drivers like that, some prefer to have the top bit as well to grab in an emergency. But Richie seems pretty happy with that way of things at the moment. Kanaan is in 14th place, so they're all battling for position, these three.
Richie Hearn, of course, a very accomplished go-kart racer, and he will be able to test his skills against Mika Hakkinen, Michael Schumacher and some other Formula 1 guys, as a bunch of the kart guys, including Dario Franchitti, will go and race in a kart series in Helsinki. Mark Blundell, I do not believe, is on that list, and despite the bad year that Mark Blundell's had this year, should remind everybody, has re-signed with Pac West, as has Mauricio, for 1999.
Look at Richie Hearn trying to think about a passing manoeuvre on Mark Blundell, but it's not happening yet. It is so hard to find the space here. You've really got to be very committed on the brakes to get past anybody. And when you do, you have to hope that they're going to give you a little bit of cooperation. Last year we saw an incident in the latter stages between Maurizio Guterman and Jimmy Vasser in the battle for second place. It all went wrong. Guterman apologised afterwards, basically just lost control of the car on the brakes. But to get past anyone here, it has to be a late-braking do-or-die manoeuvre, really.
And basically you're going to lock up the tyres to get the move done and duck down the inside, and more than likely they're going to get you right back, because you've had to slow it up so much to get down the inside. They're going to carry the momentum around the turn and get you coming back out of the turn. So it's a very tricky place to overtake it. Plus you've got to get closer than Richie is right now, and at the same time that Richie's looking at Mauricio Guterman, you've got to remember right behind him is Patrick Carpentier looking for a position too. So he's got a slight defender. Now you see Mark went down the inside there, protected the line. Here comes Richie down the inside.
Oh, this is interesting, and I think Richie, he's locked it up now. Can Blundell get back? That was a good manoeuvre from Richie Hearn, and he took advantage of the fact that Blundell had tried on the previous corner to get past Tony Kanaan, and then Richie Hearn thought, right, now I've got my chance to get past you, and he held it together well, didn't he? Because he was late on the brakes. You saw the car squirming around, and Richie Hearn found a way past.
Exactly what we'd said. He had to overcommit, go in hard and heavy on the brakes. And as you say, you saw the car squirm a little bit under brake. It looked like Mark maybe had to come back and get him, but Mark had already then forced offline and out of room, so he couldn't come right back. And then Carpentier could see that Mark was struggling, and he had a look at Mark, and then Mark had to defend that position. So it's crazy stuff going on here. Really, really busy, because you're trying to get the guy in front of you, and you've got to watch for the guy behind you and keep your momentum and keep on the line.
Let's take a look. We're going to have a replay of that. This was on board with Richie Hearn. Mark Blundell was slow out of that left-hander. That gave Richie Hearn a chance to get alongside late on the brakes. Look how sideways he got it, and he got it into the corner, into the left-hander. That was a lovely piece of driving there from Richie Hearn. Great stuff from the 27-year-old, and let's hope that he can do that sort of stuff in the future. This year he's had some decent results. A 5th position, the best result of his season. That came at Michigan on the Super Speedway, but a best qualifying performance of 3rd place at that track as well. Richie Hearn, definitely a talented young American racer, and next year with a bit more money coming in from Budweiser, that Della Penna team might be able to do a bit more.
The Della Penna team actually has offered an Argentinian South American Formula 3 driver a test at the end of November in that car, because that series is sponsored by Firestone and Budweiser. Gabriel Furlan will get a chance to test that car and maybe test the waters for the kart series for 1999.
Michael Andretti continues round in 5th position, but it's Alex Zanardi's controlling this race at the moment by 2.6 seconds. Dario Franchitti still in 2nd. Michael Andretti still hounding the back of Paul Tracy's car now. We're looking back at some of the incidents here. This was when Richie Hearn and Mark Blundell had their passing manoeuvre. Mark Blundell thought about trying to block Hearn, then decided he couldn't do it. Richie Hearn got sideways, managed to get past. Now, since that, we've seen an incident between these two, Tracy and Michael Andretti, and something that was relatively similar.
Here it is, Michael down the inside. Poor Tracy got that corner slightly wrong, and then coming out of the corner, knows that Michael's going to get by him, so he moves over, which he can do, and blocks the position. Michael gets mad, and then poor Tracy, because he's racing to the next one, locks it up again, and again Michael has to go wide and avoid him, and now Michael has lost a little bit of time to poor Tracy, and you can see waving madly gestures at poor Tracy, and not happy with the way he moves over on him, but really Paul is allowed to do that. He didn't go all the way over, he just fractionally moved over, but enough to make it too narrow for Michael to get by.
All good racing. Now, Alex Zanardi up front at the moment, started in 2nd place, has led 20 of the 32 laps. But the crucial thing, to my mind, is that we're about 5 laps away now from when these lead cars are due to come in for their 2nd stop. And it looks to me as though Zanardi's now putting in some quick laps, trying to open up a bit more of an advantage over Franchitti. Last lap around, Zanardi definitely the faster man. He did an average speed of 105.7 miles an hour. And Franchitti a little slower, not much slower, but the 3.5 second gap between these two now. Fittipaldi is now in 3rd place. So with all those fun and games going on between Tracy and Andretti, Fittipaldi had actually sneaked up into 3rd position. So Christian is running in 3rd place. He's some 10 seconds behind Zanardi. Tracy now 4th place, Andretti 5th, and of course Andretti, as we saw just now, had nearly managed to get past Tracy himself.
Well, I think Tracy, maybe his tyres are going away and he's slowing down a bit, and Fittipaldi was able to get by him, because once Fittipaldi got by him, he stretched out a 3-second lead over Tracy as well. So I think that's why Michael's catching him and trying to get by him there and getting angry, because obviously he thinks that poor Tracy is holding him up just a little bit, but he has now dropped to about half a second behind poor Tracy.
Another lap is completed by Alex Zanardi. Not as quick as his previous lap, but again, he did manage to just gain another 1/10 of a second over Dario Franchitti. You just saw the dust being kicked up. That was from Zanardi, so it just shows how hard he's trying. He's trying to get a bit more of a gap on Franchitti before this next round of stops.
Wow, now that last lap, Christian Fittipaldi was 2 miles an hour quicker. Here's another replay of poor Tracy locking him up.
Look at that, he's gone straight across the chicane this time and lost control of the car. Oh, and apparently Michael Andretti has a damaged right front wing. Now I wonder if that's anything to do with any contact with Tracy. Well, this no, he had a puncture. I think he had a puncture, you know, coming in there. I think that left rear was already punctured as he came into that one.
The left rear down, because guess how it got punctured? Guess why Michael Andretti's got problems with his right front wing.
That's right. There's obviously been contact between these two, and that was the result. That was the end result, because Tracy lost it. Look at that left rear puncture. Now that was punctured before he even got across the chicane. Into the pits then, these two leaders, well not leaders, but part of the lead group. Tracy comes back out, Michael comes back out, but it is a full course yellow. So that's, is it a full course yellow? I think it is. The pace car's waiting to pick up race leader now, and of course it's likely that we shall see Zanardi and Franchitti dive into the pits at this point.
Now again, we'll see them in the pits make their pit stops under yellow, so they're not under a mad rush type thing as far, but they're in a rush.
It's important to get out in front though, isn't it?
To beat each other out. I wonder if we'll see a slightly more lively Team Green cool pit crew. They just didn't seem to have any urgency on that first pit stop.
Sometimes that's a mark of really doing it well and being relaxed, isn't it? But it did seem that there wasn't the urgency. Now here is Franchitti with his Team Green crew at work again, the fuel going up on board.
And there's no one watching. Team Green is not watching the Zanardi car. No one's watching to see when he's going out.
Well, you saw Zanardi's car come out ahead, and Zanardi is out in front once again. So Zanardi back out in front. The pace car will pick him up now as we're under full course yellow. No great difference between the two. Zanardi, the crew could relax a little bit. He had a 3.4 second lead coming into the pits anyway. So the Ganassi crew didn't have to really do one of their super duper stops on that occasion. They could just do the work, get it done cleanly and back out. And apparently we've just heard that Christian Fittipaldi in his pit stop, remember he's coming in third place, he may well have hit one of the air hoses. He got very close to hitting somebody. It's a very tight pit lane, and of course if Fittipaldi has hit an air hose, he may get a penalty.
You do get a stop and go penalty for running over an air hose, and of course they're probably talking about the front one that's laid out across to the right front wheel changer.
Now, Michael Andretti, of course, had to have repairs done to the front of his car after the incident. Now, here is a replay of what happened between these two. Got close behind, and, well, he just ran into the back of Tracy's wheel there, and that was when it bent the right front, and that's what punctured the left rear of Tracy's car. So, as we thought, there had been contact between the two of them. Now then, let's take a look at this. Tracy's already covering the middle of the road. Michael decides to go for the inside. Tracy does move a little bit extra.
He did move a fraction. He saw him coming. He moved over a little bit. Of course, Michael trying to make the move. Tracy then gets the puncher, a very quick one, and he overruns the track and over the chicane and then loops it. But Michael, of course, has got his own troubles with the broken right front wing. Here we'll see if there's any kind of gestures there. No, there is not. Michael goes by and he comes back around, but his problem is bigger than now poor Tracy's, because to change the right front wing is going to take, change the whole nose section. It's going to take a lot longer than it takes just to quickly put on a left rear. And actually, luckily for Tracy, he was able to get around pretty quickly. Oh, Michael hasn't even bothered.
Yeah, but that's it. That's because, I presume, that they're waiting, because they're under yellow. Look, he's pretty angry with Tracy. Look, he's furious. He's drawn alongside and waving at him now.
These two had big contact when they were teammates at Newman Haas a couple of times too.
Yeah, but I think what Newman Haas have done here is they've refueled the car and they've got him back out, and then they'll bring him back in this next lap. And what they don't want to do is lose a lap.
Michael is there still making gestures. He is very unhappy about this one.
Well, not surprising. I mean, Tracy had taken the middle ground, which was fair enough, but he made that move, that little extra move, as Michael was already committed to trying to get past him. He decided there was room, and I think there was at that point, and then Tracy made another little move when really there was nowhere to go. Of course, Tracy paid the penalty for it as well. He picked up the puncture, and that cost him time. But Michael perhaps losing out more because he's going to have to make a second pit stop to get that nose cone replaced. So all sorts of fun and games, and Tracy in the wars again. He doesn't seem to be able to stay out of contention. There's a recap on the race. The leader, Zanardi. There's been two leaders, of course, Zanardi and Franchitti, and cautions, there have been 3 of them so far over some 8 laps. 3 cars out of the race. They are Bobby Rahal, Charles Jourdain and Art Meyer.
And what this has done for Michael Andretti and poor Tracy is put poor Tracy from 3rd position back to 21st, and Michael Andretti from 4th position back to 23rd. So now Michael is in the pits, and there the Newman Haas crew will be ready to go and just quickly, hopefully, slip on a new Swift nose.
Now sometimes we get the radio communication between Michael and Ed Nathman. Unfortunately we don't have it this weekend. I think it would have been quite fun really to have listened to the vitriol that would have been coming from Michael Andretti after that incident.
He's a man of many words after incidents like that. It would have been interesting to hear what he had to say.
Yeah, that's right. Unfortunately, we don't have the radio link up.
It looks like they're having troubles getting that front nose off. Normally, it's a pretty quick operation. It's about 8 screws.
Yeah, and they normally practice this along with the pit stop practice. You often see them early in the morning as we arrive at the track at some ungodly hour of about 7:30 in the morning, even earlier sometimes. They'll be practicing normal pit stops, but they'll also be practicing this kind of pit stop where they change the nose.
But of course, you see Michael getting some gestures in the car there. He's getting angry that they're taking this long, because now the field's coming around, getting ready to take the green flag. And he's going to end up losing the lap after the clever strategy of bringing him twice, once for fuel and once for the nose. So he really wants to get going.
Yeah, that's right, because it's going to take him a while to catch up to the back of the queue. He's now got to go flat out, basically. And he's allowed to do that to a large extent, as long as he's careful at the area where there's an incident. Under full course yellow, he's still allowed to go fast the rest of the track.
Absolutely. Got to be careful, of course, down pit lane, 60 miles an hour, the speed limit there. But once he's back out there, goes down the visor as the wind. Here's the incident again from the front angle. You can see there more how Tracy does pull over just a little bit.
That's right, just makes that little extra move, doesn't he? And that's really what caught them both out. And you just can't afford to do that sort of stuff at that sort of speed. And Tracy, of course, last time out, he and his team boss actually almost came to blows in the pit lane. They both picked up a fine. Interestingly, after that, CART decided to fine both Barry Green, team boss, and Paul Tracy for them getting into this scuffle in the pit lane. And that was as a result of Paul Tracy almost taking Dario Franchitti out of the race in Houston. They looked set for a 1-2 finish on that occasion. Franchitti remarkably survived to take the win. But of course, Tracy out of the event altogether.
And of course, Barry Green, an Australian, of course, Australians tend to have a slight temper every now and again when things don't go quite the way they want them to.
That's right, but I think he had justification. We're green flag, and Alex Zanardi goes racing again as he tries to pull away from Dario Franchitti, Christian Fittipaldi, and Patrick Carpentier. Now, we mentioned Patrick to you earlier. Remember, he's on a different stop strategy to everybody else, but he might well be able to make it through on just one more stop, and that really will effectively mean that he's in this position now. Everyone else is going to have to make a stop. He will have to stop for a bit longer. There'll be a bit more fuel perhaps to put in his car. Not a great deal of difference, and therefore Patrick Carpentier, through that strategy, really could have gained some good points here today, if of course he can hold it there. Fourth place at the moment. Ribeiro is another man who's done the same. He has come up to fifth place. He was another one who didn't stop on the first round, did stop later on, and again Ribeiro now appears in fifth place on our lap charts. Guterman is up to seventh as well, and Greg Moore is up to sixth. So we're really seeing some changes here.
The interesting thing with the restart on lap 37, the pit window at about 22 to 23 laps, that takes us to lap 59.60. And of course it's scheduled for the 65 laps, so it's going to be very, very close and tight on this whole situation, which is going to make it a very exciting finish to the CART Grand Prix of Australia. Here we see Michael Andretti now trying to chase up to the back of the pack. After that long stop, he's still back in 23rd position, the last car running on the track behind Vincenzo Sospiri, who is struggling in the Eagle Toyota again for the All-American races. Of course, Vincenzo Sospiri, though, has had an unbelievable year in the International Sports Racing Series over in Europe. 5 wins in the Ferrari over there, and looking for better things in 1999 if he is in fact able to return to the series.
That's right. Alex Barron has been signed up, by the way, for that team, but they may only be running the one car next year, so whether that gives Suspiria a chance or not, we'll have to see. Back with the leaders, though, and Alex Zanardi and Dario Franchitti. Again, these two, they've been dominating this race. They've been dominating the weekend. They started together on the front row. Franchitti led the early laps, hounded by Zanardi. Now, we're just taking a look at an incident that's happened in the background there with Zanardi, Tracy rather, sorry, not Zanardi, Paul Tracy, going straight down the escape road across the chicane. And we gather there's a full course. Oh, and it's Jimmy Vasser, the man who's second in the championship. He's had a pretty big accident by the looks of things. The back end of the car, well, right front and left rear taken off that car, and that looks like he's had a heavy whack. That looks like the same area that Christian had his accident last year. And let's see if we get a chance to see whether he had contact with another car. Take a look at it here. Helio Castroneves squeezed him out on the way in. Oh no! Big accident for Jimmy Vasser.
Oh, look at that wheel get launched. Luckily, they get caught by the fencing there, but oh, that is costly for the championship, for second position. We talked all about the strategy. Zanardi trying to help his mate Jimmy clinch second in the championship.
That's
Dario
disastrous.
Franchitti is getting points right now at 16 points for second place. A tough day with Jimmy. Looks like he may have hurt his hand a little bit there. A replay from overhead. There you see him get squeezed out by the wall, and then heavy contact with the tyre wall, and that's what rips up the front. Actually, the front hit on the right side too.
Yeah, that's right. Parts bouncing across in front of some of the other cars. In fact, one of the parts actually went into Helio Castroneves' car, I think. Whether it did any damage or not, I don't know. But Jimmy Vasser dramatically out of the race. There was really nowhere for him to go there. They were all trying to come in side by side. Castroneves just squeezed him out a little bit. Chance now for some of those other guys on different strategies to put in another load of fuel, and then of course they'll be able to go through to the end without any more stops, whereas the other other drivers out there are going to have to stop again unless we get a really huge number of yellows between now and the end of the race.
Or if this yellow is particularly long. There's poor Tracy coming back in after flying over that. Now, I think that may have been something connected with the Vassar accident and an avoidance there. Michael Andretti comes back under. Now, these two are going to come pull out together and be racing together again, which Michael and Paul won't like.
I think they're looking actually to see if there's any damage at the back. Perhaps they now wonder if there was damage done at the back of the car. You know, when they had the puncture, perhaps the flailing tyre, often that does do damage to suspension arms. They're not that strong when you get into that situation. I think that's what they're checking for. They've checked it, they've put the tyre back on again, and I think they've decided everything looks okay there, and get back out there, Paul. I think he must have said, this car's not handling like it was. Take a look at it.
Obviously not feeling right to him, and of course these guys can notice a fraction of a difference in these cars, and he wanted to come back in and have it double checked. There you see Jimmy Vassar's car going off.
Oh, that's such a shame, isn't it? What a shame. I mean,
it's
the
really
battle for second place, yeah, it's going to change it completely, because it was so close, that battle for second place in the series, and Jimmy holding on to that second place, but so narrowly over Dario Franchitti. Only 4 points between them at the start of this race, and of course now Franchitti running in second. Here's the replay again. As they came down there, Helio seemed to be very much in the middle of the road, but as they came to turn into the corner, he moved more onto the racing line. Perhaps he wasn't aware quite where Jimmy Vassar was, but there really wasn't anywhere for Jimmy to go.
I don't think he saw him, and I don't think Jimmy was trying to overtake him there either. I don't know, maybe just a late braking maneuver by Jimmy to start with. It just seemed like it was and Helio didn't see him coming down. He wasn't expecting it.
That's right, yeah, he wasn't aware that Jimmy was in that position, I think, and that really difficult to blame anyone, except to say perhaps both of them should have been a little more aware, particularly Castroneves should have been more aware of where Vassar was coming into that corner. Tricky one, he was focusing on the chicane that he had to thread his way through, so that was tough. Now then, apparently Tracy's suspension may well be damaged. They've had a look, Tracy's gone back out, he's still not happy with it. Zanardi still leads, Franchitti's second, Christian Fittipaldi is in third. As they head round behind the pace car again, we've seen quite a number of yellows. We're going down to the pits. We've got a chance to hear Jimmy Vassar.
Just come in. Jimmy, that was a big impact. Tell us what it was like and what happened.
Well, it was just a restart, and I don't know why. I thought Helio was letting Fernandez by, or looked like he was going really slow on the straightaway, and there was a lane to the outside. I have to see the replay to really make a comment, but I hit him in the back, and I didn't seem like I was going excessively fast. It seems like everything slowed down a lot in front of me unexpectedly, and it's just a shame trying to get some points out here today. Just mired back in the traffic, and the car felt pretty good. Taking a good job, but
take a quick look at your helmet here. You can see there's damage down here. This whole lower lip has been significantly damaged just from that impact. Fortunately, Jimmy's all right. Thanks, Jimmy.
Gary Gerald with Jimmy Vassar down pit lane as the green flag flies again, and we're back to racing as Alex Zanardi bounces over that curve again. It amazes me how hard they can hit that curve lap after lap with apparently no ill effects, and they both survive it again. Paul Tracy, of course, now not featuring amongst these top runners, nor is Michael Andretti. It's Franchitti who's hounding Zanardi, and look at this, look how close Franchitti is to the back of Zanardi, but Zanardi's not silly. He takes a slightly tight line in, but he's taken a tight line in, and Franchitti's got a chance to get down the inside. Zanardi covers that line as well. This is great racing from these two, and on board we go with Alex Zanardi looking straight back at the car of Dario Franchitti. Good, solid racing between these two. Zanardi having to use all of his acumen in racing to hold off Franchitti, who wanted that chance to get past.
That looked a lot like the maneuver we saw Zanardi and Tracy last year, and Franchitti is staying right on Zanardi. Oh, Richie Hearn with a big spin as he has blocked the track. I'm amazed at how Christian Fittipaldi is staying right underneath Dario Franchitti too.
Yeah, good performance this from Fittipaldi, one of the best we've seen from him. Now has he kept the engine running, or we're going to take a look at a replay here to see what happened to Richie Hearn. This is out of the final corner, really leading around to take the
he's
green
waiting
flag.
for a push. Look, he's waiting for a push. You see his hands go up. Where are you, corner workers? Come out and give me a push. Let me get going. So troubles for him as we get a replay on board with Richie.
Now, was this just too much welly too soon on cold tyres? Let's take a look at it. This is the final corner. Puts the power on about here. Wow, off it goes. Yep, loads of rubber laid down there. Pure and simple mistake. Too much welly on that one.
Too much welly coming out of the corner there. And you can see he looks at himself and he's frustrated at the mistake he made. Just way too much horsepower coming out of the turn and just put it all on in one go. And as Alan Jr. has said, this track is pretty slick. So now we're going to go yellow again, so the order won't change, but just something to point out for you, Ben, with Jimmy Vasser going out, and if this race should finish in these conditions with Dario Franchitti in second position, that means Jimmy Vasser has to finish fourth or better at Fontana, and Franchitti out of the points for Vasser to get second in the championship.
Well, that would be amazing if Franchitti can finish second in the series in his second season of racing, particularly after a rather shaky start to the year. That would be a very impressive finish. There's Alex Barron into the pits meanwhile, number 36 car coming in, going back out after a routine stop, and several of the drivers towards the back of the field deciding to take this opportunity again under yellows to top up the fuel. Of course, this means that the leaders themselves have got more chance of making it to the end of the race, but it's still going to be very, very, very tight for the leaders to get through this race without having to make another splash and dash stop for fuel. Looks as though they're going for a nose cone change on that car of Richie Hearn. They've got it going again. He's back in the pits. The track is now clear. Shouldn't be too long before the green flag flies again, but they have to change the nose cone on it.
I don't see much damage to it, but I think this second element on the left front side of the wing is missing, and that's what is going to obviously lose a lot of downforce for him, and you need that downforce on this twisty track to get around these turns. So Richie Hearn goes to the back of the pack. This is the last one. He is one lap down on the leaders right now in 22nd position, the last running car out there. Ribeiro, who had got up to 4th position by being off whack with the pit stops, now gone back to 20th position. Guzman in 19th, Paul Tracy in 18th after his incident with the left rear tyre going down after contact. And then, of course, Baron, who we just saw pull back out of the pits, is in 17th position. And everyone's slowly working their way up. And Scott Pruitt now worked up to 6th position. Best he's been all day. Brian Herter in 5th, Gilles de Fran in 4th. I think we're just going to see a great duel to the end between Zanardi, Franchitti, and Christian Fittipaldi, who's having one of the best runs he's had in a long time. It'd be great to see him pull one off here in Australia.
That would be amazing, wouldn't it? We'll just have to wait and see if that happens. Still a long way to go, and still the fuel issue is going to become critical in this one as to whether they're going to be able to make it through without stopping a final time for a splash and dash of fuel. If we carry on having this number of yellows, however, I have to say that won't be such a problem. They will be able to make it through.
I hate to go too far into my kart trivia, but Ben,
what are you coming up with now?
Well, can you tell me when the last time drivers that had the last letter as I on the last letter of the name finished 1, 2, 3?
I have absolutely no idea.
Well, I can tell you it was Road America, and guess who it involved? Dario Franchitti, Alex Zanardi, and Christian Fittipaldi.
Well, there we are with the same 3 drivers, slightly different order on this occasion.
Aye.
Zanardi in front. Oh dear. Alonso Jr., his name doesn't end in I. He's in the pit lane again. He had suspension damage earlier in this race, remember? So he's running way down. He's 3 laps down on the race leader. And he's had a routine stop there, back out in the Penske to rejoin the fray at the back of the field. We still have 23 cars running in this one, 4 cars out, Jimmy Vasser, Bobby Rahal, Michel Jourdain and Arndt Meyer. Everyone else still running at the moment. They carry on having this number of yellow flags, and it's going to take a long time. And in fact, last year they had 7 caution periods. This year we're getting close to that at this point, and they had to run to the 2-hour mark. Have to keep an eye on that. It's possibly the same situation on this occasion. There, by the way, the 2 Archera Wells teammates, Max Papis and Robbie Gordon. They run, let's have a look. Papis is currently running in a good 8th position. Gordon in 9th place. Both cars in the top 10.
It would be great to get 2 Toyotas to finish in the top 10. Of course, Max Papis gave the Toyota their best result they've had, a 5th place finish in Houston, which he was absolutely over the moon about, finally getting to see some results. So now if they can get a good 2 cars in the top 10, that'd be great. And don't forget though, these guys, Max Papis and Robbie Gordon, will not be here in this team next year. Max Papis going to Bobby Rahal, and Robbie Gordon at this point still unsure. Last I heard, he was talking to John Menard about putting together a kart program, and John Menard coming to the Kart Champ Series.
Just looking at the points, just to remind you, coming into this race, that's how the situation lay, with Vassar 4 points ahead of Franchitti. But Franchitti, of course, now second in this race. Vassar is out. Fernandez 10 points behind Franchitti, and Fernandez at the moment is running in 11th place, so he will pick up a couple of points if he finishes there. Still a long way to go, though, to try and move up the order somewhat. 22 laps remain here in Australia in this bright sunshine. Quite a strong breeze blowing, as you can see from the trees and the flags in the background there. But a beautiful day for racing. There's been rain in the past at this racetrack, but not today. Absolutely ideal conditions. Zanardi leads them round. Franchitti still hungry for more race wins. He might have had a good season, but he wants that second place in the championship. He wants race victories more than anything else. He's had 3 wins already this season. Zanardi's had 6 wins, and I'm sure that Franchitti would just love to add another one to their tally. They all get sideways. Fittipaldi particularly had a big sideways twitch as they come out of the last corner. Green flag again, on to lap number 45 now, and Zanardi versus Franchitti continues. Meanwhile, Brian Herter was having a little look at Gilda Ferret, bouncing over the curve through the first chicane. Zanardi gets through there safely, and again the leaders all make it through safely. On board with Zanardi looking back at Franchitti.
And there you see him stretch it just a little bit under acceleration down the main straightaway, because that will close up under braking. There you see Franchitti coming right up behind, underneath the wing of the target Reynard of the Honda. Of course, great for Honda this weekend, currently running 1-2 with the Ford of Christian Fittipaldi in third. And of course, Firestone 1-2, Goodyear in third. Zanardi, there you see him checking the mirrors, seeing how far he can get between him and Franchitti. It looks like he's just got a little extra power down the straightaway there.
Yeah, could be that. Could be they're running a slightly different aerodynamic package on the car, a little less wing perhaps, that would give him a little bit more straight line speed. And that could be just enough to inch away from Franchitti. Both, as you say, using the Honda engine, both in the Reynard chassis, both on Firestone tyres. The identical package. It's been the dominant package now for really for 3 years. If we look at this package of Reynard, Honda, Firestone, right from the 1996 season, which of course saw Jimmy Vassar win the championship, through 1997 with Zanardi winning, through this season with Zanardi winning the championship, and with Franchitti winning more races than anybody else apart from Zanardi. Again, this package is the one to have.
And of course, that's what's made the off-season so interesting in the kart series, because the team owners have got to decide what their package is going to be for the next year. And at this point, a lot of people are hedging their bets on the package being Swift, Firestone and Honda power, and that may well be the case. But of course, you don't know until all the pre-season testing and then the spring training down at Homestead, till you've really come up against all the other packages and see what everybody else has got. And then of course it can be do or die days, like either yes, we've got the package, or uh-oh, this is going to be a long season.
That's right. Now watching the battle further down there, you see Brian Herter in 5th place, behind him Scott Pruitt in 6th. JJ Leto now in 7th place. You can see him in the white and blue car behind the Vistion machine of Scott Pruitt. Behind Leto is Max Papis, then Robbie Gordon, and then Tony Kanaan, who rounds out the top 10.
The good thing to see is that both Papis and Gordon are not getting left by these 3 guys. They're staying right in that chase. It's not like there's a big gap building up. Papis right behind Leto, Gordon right behind him, then Tony Kanaan, the Rookie of the Year for 1998, $50,000 in prize money for that.
Yeah, that's right. Great effort this year from Tony Kanaan. Just looking down there at the 2 Toyota cars, Max Papis and Robbie Gordon. Brilliant performance from Toyota this year. Down in the pits, meanwhile, Paul Tracy's just come in and he's got out of the car. We may have a chance to speak to him in just a moment. He's certainly had an incident-filled race. It'll be interesting to hear his comments on that. But obviously it's all over for him now.
And tough for him to see his teammate in exactly the same machinery doing so well. Paul Tracy is buried down in 13th, I believe, in the points. Actually, even further than that. No, he's 13th in the points, but with about half as many as Dario Franchitti.
I have to say that the work that Toyota have done this year really have put them right up there now with Honda, Mercedes and Ford, and this is indeed a fast track. You know, this is an engine track, this is a speed track, and they're still right up there. They had some of the fastest speed track figures this weekend. Robbie Gordon actually topped the list at one stage, and I'm just so impressed by the amount of effort, the amount of work that Toyota have put in. I wondered a little bit last year when they had all those engine blow-ups. You remember what it was like, right? Every time the car went out, whichever team they seemed to blow up. But the improvement this year, just absolutely brilliant.
And it's great to see it. They've finally come through and done that, and now we've got another engine manufacturer that's competitive in the kart series, and that's another thing that makes the kart series so good. With all these, again,
Let's go down to the pits now, here from Paul Tracy.
Rear suspension problems here?
Yeah, Michael hit me in the backside in the back straightaway, and I mean, he hit me so hard it punctured the tire, bent the rear suspension, and it severed the rear brake line. So I was driving the car after that with only front brakes, and it's there's, you know, doing 190 miles an hour down to 30 mile an hour corners with no rear brakes. It wasn't safe to be out there, so it was disappointing for the Cool team. I had a good car. We were just trying to make the mileage that we needed to do to finish on the podium, and
Seemed like there was a lot of finger pointing going on here on pit road between the teams as they passed by each other. Was all that justified in your mind?
I don't know. I didn't see any of that. I know I got hit from behind, and it bent all the rear suspension and punctured my rear tire. So, you know, he wasn't alongside, so he wasn't in a position to pass.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you.
Well, they can argue about that one afterwards, can't they? I think they will as well. They will continue to argue about that one.
That's the one thing about the Australian race. It has a long time to think about it on the plane on the way home.
That's right, yeah. As you said earlier, it's an awfully long way to go for the race to finish early. At least Tracy had a reasonable run this time, through to about 2/3 distance, which is where we're at now. But out of the race nonetheless. We saw, while that interview was going on, by the way, we saw what was nearly an incident between Adrian Fernandez, Patrick Carpentier and Greg Moore. They all survived, and that was in the battle for 11th place. And in fact, here you are on board with Michael Andretti, who's just behind that particular battle. The two blue and white cars there of Greg Moore, first of all, then Patrick Carpentier ahead of Michael Andretti. It did look as for a moment as though they were all going to squeeze past Fernandez, but they survived, and they're all there battling. Helio Castroneves and Marc Blundell are also part of that queue.
And it's a known fact that Patrick Carpentier and Greg Moore don't necessarily see eye to eye, so I'm sure there's a little bit of tussling and arguing going on there. But also, we're getting reports between Robbie Gordon and Max Papis. There's a bit of radio contact and arguing about who should be where and allowing each one to get by. So this could be interesting. Marc Blundell is having a look at Helio Castroneves down the inside, but there was no move there.
No, I think maybe he's just trying to put Castroneves off. Maybe he's trying to rattle him a little bit. Castroneves is a younger driver, and perhaps Marc just seeing whether he's got the mental strength to put up with seeing a car move around in his mirrors a little bit.
Well, Marc's got to find something to do during the races these days, because he's not going to be running up front looking for a win. So he's that entertains himself now.
That's right. It's just been a horrible season, and you can't put any blame at the door of the drivers, because both Blundell and Maurizio Guterman won races last year. They qualified right up there last year. They were absolutely superb, and yet this year the engineering side of the team really seems to have let them down. They've just been off the pace generally, and they need a big rethink, I think, over the winter to try and get themselves on the pace again.
Now, we talked about fuel strategy at the beginning of this race, and of course that's all been changed with all the yellows, but apparently Gilles de Ferran has said he needs 2 laps of yellow to be able to make it to the finish. Gilles de Ferran is currently running 4th at this point.
We're also looking into the side pods of Alex Zanardi's car. One of the problems with street track races, sometimes they pick up some debris in those side pods, rubbish perhaps that gets blown onto the track. You've seen how breezy it is today. Quite often that'll pick bits of paper up or plastic cups, and they can get lodged into those side pods, and of course on high temperatures like we're seeing today, that can cause engine overheating problems. There is a report that he may have a trouble, but it doesn't look as though there's anything too serious in there, and hopefully they'll be able to live with that. The point at the moment is drivers really trying to conserve fuel, hoping they can make it to the end of this race without having to make a splash and dash stop. We're looking at the moment at 2 teammates. That's Alex Barron and Vincenzo Sospiri. They're running in 19th and 20th places so far. Sospiri, the Italian, joining into the series for these last few races, replacing PJ Jones. And there, Alex Barron is in front of these two. The American racer in his first season, almost completed it now, moved up from Formula Atlantic, and has been really very impressive throughout the year.
Alex Barron, I think, has got great potential as a driver, and obviously Dan Gurney thinks that too, because he's re-signed him for 1999. Obviously, again, not being in the equipment, so that you need to be in to show what you've got. The Toyota coming on. Although the R. Sierra Wells team seems to be doing somewhat better with the Toyota development than the All-American racer. And of course, they were the team that did have the special low revving engine at Houston. But here they're back to the regular, normal, high revving engine, as are the All-American racers. But again, they're being outdone by Pappas and Robbie Gordon, who run up as 8th and 9th.
Look at this battle. Herter on the outside is Jonathan Ferret. Can he go around the outside? Is his brave stuff? Wow, good stuff from Herter. Oh, and Ferret almost in the water as a result. I think
Pruitt gets him too.
Yeah, Pruitt got past him, and that was one of the best bits of overtaking I've seen from Brian Herter. Great stuff from him. Round the outside on a street course, and he really made the move work. Gilda Ferret had to give best to him. As you say, Pruitt took advantage of it. So that puts Herter now into 4th position.
And it also brings the Toyotas up closer to Gilles de Fran, and they could be threatening him soon. I think he's had to turn. Oh, here you see the Pappas-Gordon battle.
Yeah, good stuff between these two. Max Pappas is the first of the two blue and orange cars. Gordon the second one, and they're running in 8th and 9th places. In fact, I said the Ferret was up, Herter was up to 4th. That is right. He's in 4th place behind Fittipaldi, and quite a battle going on there at the moment. This is a replay. Look at this. Brian Herter on the outside. Remember, the Ferret had the inside line, but Herter just kept going around the outside. I don't think the Ferret could quite believe that, and had the line for the second part of the chicane, and then there's just a touch.
A little bit of contact there.
Yeah, there wasn't really much that either of them could do about that. That was just part and parcel of it, and as a result of that touch, it meant Scott Pruitt went through. So Zanardi leads, Franchitti second, Fittipaldi third, Herter 4th now, Pruitt 5th, and Gilles de Ferran finds himself in 6th. Down the field at the moment at Helio Castro-Neves, who runs in 15th place, and there's a little bit of smoke on the back of that car.
He's also got some damage to the left front wing, which was not part of the Jimmy. Well, maybe some debris caught up with him as Vassar's car disintegrated after that little bit of contact between those two. But we understand it may be a black flag for Helio Castro-Neves for the smoke, and since we've been looking, we haven't really seen it, but there was some a little bit earlier.
Well, let's hope that he can survive that. It would be a shame, having driven a pretty strong race. He was involved in that incident with Jimmy Vassar, of course, earlier on, which...
there you can see the smoke right there. Right. It's been a long weekend for these guys. The Bettenhausen team, they travelled 9,200 miles to the Surfers Paradise for this race, and then obviously they trashed 2 cars in practice and in warm-ups, then finally get a car put together, and then managed to do 52 of 65 laps and then get black flag. Yeah. Gonna be irritating.
Yeah, the black flag is out apparently, so he will have to make a visit to the pits, and they'll have to see if they can stop it leaking as they continue. And
I believe you get 3 laps to heed the black flag, and then if you don't come in, they stop scoring.
Yeah, that's right. So he's got to come in, he's got to respond, and of course penalties can be applied either in the way of fines or endorsements on the license if he doesn't come in. So I'm sure Tom Brown will be on the radio at the moment saying, come on Helio, we've got to get you in, we've got to check this out. There's no way we continue with the car in this condition. So although there he is running reasonably well in 15th place, because he's out of the points anyway, so it's not as if he's losing, in fact, that much. He might as well come in and not have all the grief for disobeying it.
And of course the Rookie of the Year title, the Truman Rookie of the Year title has gone to this man, Tony Kanaan. Of course his roommate, these guys raced together for Tasman in Indy Lights. And Castro-Neves, of course, just got pipped to the title by Tony Kanaan, and now Tony Kanaan has gone on to win Rookie of the Year. He's had 3 podium finishes. He's going to win $50,000 in the Jim Truman Award at the Kart Banquet in November out in California, which I'm sure he'll be thrilled to do.
Yeah, great guy, Tony Kanaan, just 23 years old. Same age as Helio Castro-Neves, but Kanaan is somebody who's made it largely on talent. He comes from not a wealthy Brazilian family. Many Brazilians come over into motor racing, whether it be in Europe or in the United States, with quite a lot of backing behind them. Tony Kanaan is not one of those. He's come from more of a working class background in Brazil. Started his career by working on go-karts or working on racing karts, and through working on them he earned some races in them. And that's really how he started out, and it was pure talent that seen him go up the ladder. And I think that's great. It's wonderful to see that it is still possible for drivers to get there on talent. It's not easy, and not all talented drivers make it, but it's great to see that 1 or 2 still get through the system.
It's hard to get, like you say, it's like a salmon swimming upstream. It's a tough system to get through, but he is one of the guys that has managed to do it. Adrian Fernandez had a lot of help, of course, as he is having a good run. 2 wins this year, and of course Tony Kanaan with the 3 podium finishes. But Adrian now is working hard at this point to keep Carpentier and Greg Moore behind him. Adrian running in 11th position. Carpentier and Moore at the same time seem to be battling amongst themselves, as we now have scheduled just 8 laps left, 9 laps left, pardon me. However, we may run on the time limit, and no one's quite sure if we're going to get this race in or not, and they're not quite sure what to tell these drivers.
It's all very unpredictable, I have to say, because, as you say, not that long to go. It might go to the 2-hour time limit. And the other big question mark in everybody's mind is, have we got enough fuel in this car to get to the end? Now, that will, to a certain extent, depend on when the checkered flag falls, whether it's on the 2-hour limit or whether it's on the 65 lap mark. And everybody is just going to be so tight for fuel. We could well see a situation of cars running out of the last lap. There's a car that's done that in the past. He did that in Detroit. That's Maurizio Gugelmin in the Pat West car. He ran out of fuel in Detroit last year. Then his teammate Mark Blundell ran out of fuel.
300 yards later.
That's right, and they both lost the chance of their first win. And of course it was Greg Moore who inherited the victory on that occasion. Well, today there's an equal chance that we're going to see cars running out of fuel on the last lap. Zanardi at the moment with a 4.4 second lead over Franchitti. Then we see Fittipaldi.
That's going to change everything, because now yellow flag's going to come out.
Castro Neves, Italio Castro Neves, the Brazilian who's already crashed heavily this weekend, crashes again. He was involved in an incident with Vassar earlier, but now another incident sees the Brazilian out of the race. The yellow flag will save everybody in terms of fuel. What it does mean is it probably will be a 2-hour time-limited race. Still be pretty close to the full distance, but that makes the difference. That means that everybody should make it through without a splash and dash of fuel. Helio Castroneves out of the race.
He could have saved Tony Bettenhausen, and the team has receded.
Oh, Zanardi's gone for a splash. He's gone for a splash. Now that's interesting. They obviously feel it's necessary to put the splash of fuel in now under yellow. Has Franchitti come in? That's the question. Interesting decision. They've gone on what their figures that they've been getting on the fuel meter, and now Zanardi may well have a tough task here to see whether he can still win this race. It's going to be very difficult to overtake, but of course Franchitti might run out of fuel before the end.
I see, because Franchitti may not be able to push it all the way as Gilles de Ferran comes in for a splash as well. Full course yellow.
Wow, this really does hot things up nicely now for the end of this race. The penultimate race in the FedEx Championship Series. De Ferran comes in, another driver using Honda power. He decides he needs more fuel. Don't forget, Zanardi is one of the most economical drivers. His driving style, both on tyres and fuel, is one of the more economical, and if he's decided he needs to come in, it must have been pretty crucial.
Now that is an interesting strategy, because now he's going to be able to go full welly the rest of the race once they go green again. What Franchitti is doing right now is hoping right now that this is a long yellow. Now this is what they call the lap out. This is the crucial lap out, which Zanardi is doing now to catch up in the back of the field for the yellow to get as less traffic as possible between him and Franchitti.
Well, he had such a big lead over the others. I reckon he would have got out. He probably is in 3rd place as he's come back out. I would imagine that Franchitti but Christian's decided to come in as well, so it's only going to be... he's come in.
Franchitti, they've all come in.
Right, now, so this is a critical stop, and where Zanardi is, as he comes around, that's why he's going so quickly. Now, that's less fuel going on board.
There goes Zanardi. Zanardi just went by.
Right, so it looks as, yes, you're right. Well spotted there, Guy. And Zanardi just did enough on that outlap. Wow, that was critical. Critical lap there from Alex Zanardi. Brilliant stuff from both of them. And Zanardi has maintained his advantage over Franchitti.
And then you're wondering, probably at home, how come he get a full lap in under full course yellow at full speed? Well, because the pace car couldn't pick up the leader, because he was the leader.
Now here we are, this is what happened, and basically he just locked up and hit the wall as far as I can see.
Well, I wonder if this is a result of the liquid that he was losing before. Yeah. There you see a big puff of smoke there, but that's from the contact.
Yeah, whether that's something to do with the fluid, perhaps broke the car. He should have been into the pits, shouldn't he? And there we are, he's caused this... Oh, no, it broke, left front.
Left front
was broken. Now that's interesting, that was actually broken before
any kind of contact with the wall there.
Yeah.
And I don't know how that got to be broken. However, if Helio Castroneves had heeded the black flag, it would have saved Tony Bettenhausen about 100 grand on damage there.
That's right, absolutely. Castroneves out, Franchitti finds himself second behind Alex Zanardi. Zanardi still in front of this race with just a little way to go now. We are on a timed race rather than a lap number. 65 laps they were due to run, but it's going to run to the 2-hour limit before we get to the end of the 65 laps. So that means that Zanardi will have to watch the clock, or rather his team will, and try and defend the lead from Dario Franchitti.
And that basically means we have about 8 minutes left for this race. And of course, it takes them about 1.5 minutes to do a lap. So these guys are now figuring that all out themselves as the pace car lights go off, indicating we'll get a restart. So they know that they've got about 4 or 5 laps to make their move and get this job done. Franchitti trying to get by Zanardi, and in the background, Christian Fittipaldi is going to try and get by both of them, get his first win. I think it's going to be a dramatic shootout in Brisbane, Australia, round 18 of the kart series.
Yeah, now this is going to be fun, isn't it? Now we've seen on some of the restarts that Dario has had a real shot at trying to find a way past Alex. Alex has defended vigorously, and yeah, Christian is looking very aggressive. I think Dario's going to have to watch his mirrors. He's not only going to have to concentrate on finding a way past Alex, he's going to have to look for a very racy Christian Fittipaldi, isn't he?
Right behind him.
Yeah, then Alonso Jr., although he's actually a couple of laps down, so don't worry about him. In fact, he's 9 laps down now.
Yeah, I think these three at the front of the pack are just going to disappear and have their own little battle for first, second and third. In the meantime, Pruitt in fourth, JJ Leto in fifth, looking for his best result. Canan in sixth, Fernandez in seventh, Carpentier in eighth, Moore in ninth, and then Michael Andretti rounds out the top 10. Done well to get back into the top 10 after his changing of a front wing and contact with Paul Tracy.
That's right, but you mentioned JJ Leto there. Good point, that guy, because fifth position really would be a major boost for both the Finnish driver and for Hogan Racing. Let's see if he can hold on to that. Here we are then, getting into the closing stages. Zanardi heading for the green flag this time around, out of that final corner, laying the rubber down. Franchitti really put the power down.
He did put it down early, got it slightly sideways. That'll give Zanardi the edge. Christian Fittipaldi dropped back a little bit. Probably had to react to what looked like Franchitti was going to be totally sideways. Zanardi zooms up and leads him again into the chicane, kicking up a lot of dust and dirt as they apex that one, or in fact actually destroy the apex off that curve.
They've really hit that curve hard. I do wonder whether...
Christian got it sideways coming out there too.
I do wonder whether they hit that curve that hard, that often, whether the suspension can stand it. Maybe that's what happened to Castroneves, but everybody else seems to be surviving, hitting the curbs that hard every single lap around, and Zanardi has maintained the edge over Dario Franchitti. Christian Fittipaldi in third. Now we hear that JJ Leto didn't stop on that last round. That's why he's moved up into fifth place. So JJ Leto did not put a splash of fuel in, and they are just hoping that they can make it through to the end without putting any more fuel. Worth the risk, I have to say, for Leto. But up front, the battle is between Zanardi and Franchitti.
Now these guys did stop for fuel. One interesting thing is we've had 7 different winners in 7 different races here in Australia, and it looks like we're going to get another first-time winner here in Australia between Zanardi, Franchitti, or Fittipaldi. But Fittipaldi seems to have lost the chase just a little bit.
Yes, he does, doesn't he? He couldn't stay with the pace of these two. Perhaps that Goodyear time not quite as sharp on the restart when it's not as up to temperature. They seem to be able to lap at the same pace once they are up to temperature. But the Firestone tyre, when it's not fully up to temperature, still seems to give the drivers massive amount of confidence. They really seem to be able to slide the car around on cold tyres, and that's what's happened here as Zanardi and Franchitti have just stormed away again as they go across the line. That's 59 laps in the book, but we're getting closer to the 6 minutes past the hour, which marks the 2-hour point in this race. They've got about 5 minutes of racing still to go here. They're only going to get in about 3 or 4 laps.
3 laps. Now the other crucial thing is, do they complete the 3rd lap right before the clock hits the 2-hour mark and then still have to do 1 more lap? It could be a lot like last year. We could see 2 white flags coming this year.
Yeah, karts will be keen to put the the white flag out to indicate that last lap at the right time. But these two, oh no, what a shame. We've got a car off. It's Alex Barron who's off. Richie Hearn is also off. They've obviously had contact, and that means it's going to be yellow again. Oh, and it's one of the Newman Haas cars. I think it's Michael.
Michael Andretti.
Michael Andretti. That was the battle that was going on for around 10th position, and it looks as though all 3 of them have come to grief and that, of course, has brought out the full course yellow, and now we're in danger of it finishing for the second race in succession under yellow.
I think that is going to be the case. There we see Alex Barron running away, or not running away, but running off the track. Richie Hearn is buried in the tyres, and I think his car is damaged, and Michael Andretti has obviously got damage to his car. And you can see these guys working furiously because they don't want the race to end under yellow if they can help it. And they really just want to get these cars parked off to the side and let the race for the win as we get a replay.
Now, Barrett, that was a funny lose, wasn't it? That's something, it looked like something seized up to me on that one. It looked like the gearbox seized, and of course, I think the others just came around, had nowhere to go. I think Max Papis it was who squeezed through. Let's take another look at this from the camera just on the other side of the barrier. This should give us a good view. Now, watch this back end of, it just snaps halfway around. That's weird, because he's not on the power there. Hits the barrier, here come the others. Gordon, that is, yeah. Oh, and the others have spun sort of already in avoidance. Now, whether that was in avoidance, so let's have a look from Michael's car. What can we see from here?
This is where we'll see it coming up. As you look forward, you can see Barron spinning. There you see him, Gordon slowing down. Michael slowed down and got hit from behind by Richie Hearn, which spun him around. I don't think there's any damage to Michael's car, and he may be able to get going again after we just complimented him on getting up to 10th. Here it is from Richie Hearn. And then you see him contact there. Yeah. That spins Michael around. Richie's got nowhere to go. He's all locked up, just headed for the tyre wall. And of course, Michael had backed off. And I think probably Richie couldn't see the incident happening. Wasn't expecting Michael to suddenly get out of the power. No, that's right. He was caught out by Michael slowing down. Richie wasn't seeing the incident further ahead. Michael's had a horrible day, hasn't he? not a lot of fun. We may get actually see a one-lap shootout. If they can quickly tow Alex's car away. Look at Michael, I mean, up to third, running great all day, then trouble with Paul and couldn't get by him, and then the contact with Paul Tracy, and then fixing the wing. Here we are, another replay, and it really was, there was Barron losing it, the others come round, Michael slowed down because he saw Gordon slow right in front of him as well, and that Richie just came in there full tilt and really hadn't seen what was going on, hadn't allowed for it, ran into the back of Michael's car, and that's what saw those two go off. Robbie Gordon did a fantastic job of managing to get stopped and avoid Alex Barron. Yeah. And of course this has affected Robbie Gordon. Remember, he was running up 8th and 9th, he and Max Papis were running together. They both dropped down the order suddenly, and Papis is now 16th and Gordon 7th. Pardon me, Papis is 15th, Gordon 17th. 60 laps completed now. The leader, of course, Alex Zanardi, been the two leaders only in this race, Zanardi and Franchitti, and we're going to get a green flag. Great news this. It'll only be for about a lap, I would think. White flag. It is white flag we're going to get this time. Are we going to get the green as well? I'm not sure that we are. I think we're going to get white and yellow together, in fact. So it looks as though for the second race in succession, this race will be won under yellow flag. It happened in Houston 2 weeks ago, but on that occasion, Dario Franchitti beat Alex Zanardi in a straight fight. This time, Alex Zanardi is set to reverse the tables and to come out on top of Franchitti after another straight fight between the two of them. He took the advantage on the pit stop. The Ganassi crew again helping Zanardi, but Zanardi then has controlled the race from that point, just enabling enough of a gap, holding enough of a gap over Franchitti, so that at the second pit stop, his crew had plenty of time to still get him out in front. And Franchitti has driven a superb race, but Zanardi has driven an even more superb race, and it looks as though he's heading for win number 7 here today. It's going to be pretty tough to beat him now. Obviously, at this point, it would have been great to see a great one-lap shootout there at the end, but we're not going to get that privilege, unfortunately, as we go white and yellow. It's Jonesy in the middle. Jonesy there. He had a victory not long ago in Australian touring car, I believe, on a special appearance. Of course, Alan Jones, what year was that? He was Formula 1 world champion, 19... Oh, now you're stretching it. 1980 was 1980. Yeah, so... of course, we saw Mick Doohan earlier, who was a 5-time motorcycle champion. Of course, and Barry Sheen down here doing the Australian television coverage as well. That's right, yeah. There's a few stars around. We've got Chip Ganassi down in the pits as we look set to
see Alex Zanardi win his 7th race of the season, another maximum score, and he's already set a new record for number of points in 1 year. He's going to add another 20 points to the 250 that he's already got for winning the championship. 270 points that'll bring him up to. He further extends his lead, but of course Franchitti, second place here today. He might not have taken the win that he wanted so much, but he's driven a great race, and it will mean that Franchitti will go into a clear second place in the championship with just one more race to run at Fontana, the last race of the year on the super speedway. The track has been cleared, but of course no chance to go
I was
green.
curious as to why the crews keep going so furiously to get the area cleaned up once they've seen that white and yellow flag display, because they know at this point it's over. But I saw Robbie Gordon overtaking earlier as well under this yellow and white flag situation. So
Zanardi's enjoying this now. Look, he's on the last lap, but
he knows.
Confident the car will get to the end. As long as he doesn't switch the engine off as he's going around behind the pace car, he should be all right. Zanardi, Franchitti and Fittipaldi. And let's not forget Christian, because Christian Fittipaldi's best result of the year has been a 3rd place. He's going to match that podium finish he had at Road America, and those 3 same drivers, as you mentioned earlier, who were on the podium in Road America, on the podium here again in Australian Surface Paradise. Just the top 2 have been swapped round.
They've swapped it around. Of course, 20 points for Alex Zanardi, 16 for Franchitti, which puts him ahead of obviously Vassar and second in the championship. Christian will pick up 14 points for his 3rd place finish, and of course another first-time winner here in Australia.
Here we go then. Zanardi coming up to take the checkered flag, accelerates cleanly to cross the line. Alex Zanardi is the winner in Australia. Win number 7 of the 1998 season. A little bit of a shame to see it finish under yellow, but as the last race did in Houston, that's 2 races in a row now, and Zanardi, he will be delighted with that. His last win in the championship was a little while ago now. In fact, it was in Toronto, and there have been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 races since then. So in terms of Alex Zanardi's performance in Champ Car racing, 6 races without a win is a bit of a drought, really.
Yes, you can see it is a drought, and of course around here the bizarre marsupials don't like to see a drought, Ben.
Oh, absolutely.
Interesting other thing too, the Nations Cup, which is the only one that's not been sealed up. Well, now with the 20 points for Italy, that gives them 280. United States will have 281.
Wow. If Alex could wrap up that Nations Championship, he would be really delighted. They're the final results then. Zanardi the winner from Franchitti and Fittipaldi. Scott Pruitt, a good result to finish 4th, and JJ Leto survived on that low field. The risk was worth it. He finished in 5th place, his best ever result. 6th Fernandez, 7th Canaan, 8th Moore, 9th Carpentier, 10th Brian Herter, 11th Mark Blundell and Maurizio Gugelmin, both getting in the points. So well done to the Pac West team, who struggled so much this year, but a little bit of consolation. Ribeiro finished in 13th, De Ferran dropped to 14th towards the end. Spiri was a finisher this time out in 15th, Gordon 16th, Clapp is 17th. They really lost a lot at the end. Hearn, the first of the well, in fact, he did finish, yes, Hearn did finish in 18th, and then the rest of the drivers who didn't quite make it. But Zanardi, the winner today. So there is Alex Zanardi, absolutely delighted with that victory. Waving to the crowd, waving to just about anybody he can find at the moment.
Well, what he's doing is deliberately slowing down and trying to think where the best place is to do the donuts.
Yeah, donut king, of course, Alex Zanardi, and his trademark. When he wins a race, he loves to do those donuts, and
I would imagine maybe
really his last chance, isn't it? It's his last chance. Although he's not in America, he's in Australia, it's still really his last chance to do donuts, because even if he wins in Michigan, I don't think there's much chance of doing donuts.
Or even if he wins in Fontana.
I keep saying Michigan, but here we go. Listen to the cheers. Everybody loves this.
Except for Chip Ganassi.
Thumbs up from Alex Zanardi, a winner again in the 1998 championship. The champion putting on another great performance. And the crowd just love him. What a star he's been of the Champ Car Series. What a loss he will be to the championship. There's no doubt that Alex Zanardi has become a star in the United States as a result of his performances in Champ Car racing, and he's a popular man in the paddock as well. Sometimes his driving, his aggressive driving puts the wind up other drivers, but He's a consistent finisher. It's not often that he doesn't finish a race. And he's never had, in the 3 years he's been racing with this team, he's never had a mechanical breakdown. Isn't that astonishing?
And that is partially because he knows how to look after the car, except when he does the donuts. This will cause a mechanical breakdown.
That's right. Touch and gearbox take a bit of a hammering on this one. But look at it, it's
Look at the
great.
smoke there.
And the sound of it as well.
And of course, the one-handed. It's like an Australian huge crowd on hand here today. They've probably had one or two Fosters during the race. Just listen to the crowd, they love it.
They do love it, and that's brilliant. So Alex Zanardi, the winner in Australia, the champion, going out on a high note with one race still to go.